Can spiritual growth be achieved through effort alone? Or must the deepest experiences come as gifts beyond our control? This fundamental question lies at the heart of the Sufi understanding of spiritual development. The Sufis address this paradox through a sophisticated framework distinguishing between maqamat, stations, and ahwal, states. This ancient wisdom offers profound insight for our modern spiritual landscape. The modern tendency to approach spirituality as an achievement to be accomplished through technique alone misses the essential interplay of effort and grace. As the Sufi tradition teaches, certain qualities can indeed be developed systematically, but the most transformative experiences arrive according to a wisdom beyond our control. In this distinction between stations and states, Sufis mapped what many spiritual seekers experience intuitively, that our journey contains both what we can cultivate through discipline and what must be received through grace. Stations like patience, detachment, and trust can be deliberately developed through practice. States like ecstasy, intimacy with the divine, or profound insight arrive unbidden and depart according to their own timing. Understanding these two dimensions of the path helps us navigate our own spiritual journey with greater wisdom, neither abandoning disciplined practice nor mistaking peak experiences for permanent attainments. In a world that often confuses spiritual development with achievement, the Sufi framework of stations and states provides a much-needed balance between effort and surrender. In Sufi tradition, maqamat, singular maqam, are spiritual stations or stages that are deliberately cultivated and permanently acquired through effort, practice, and divine grace. The word maqam literally means a place of standing or position, suggesting stability and permanence. Stations represent spiritual accomplishments that, once genuinely attained, become integrated aspects of one's character. The Andalusian Sufi Ibn Arabi described them as spiritual positions that are gained through striving and intention, and which remain with the traveler. What distinguishes stations from states is their stability and the effort required to attain them. The Sufi master Junaid of Baghdad explained, "Stations are earned through effort and maintained through vigilance, while states are bestowed as gifts and depart according to divine wisdom." Traditional Sufi manuals enumerate between 7 and 100 stations, though most commonly cite 7 to 10 primary ones. Among the most foundational are Tawbah, repentance, the conscious turning away from heedlessness toward mindful presence, recognizing and releasing patterns that obscure spiritual perception. Zuhd, detachment, cultivating inner freedom from possessiveness toward both material things and immaterial attachments like status or identity. Faqr, spiritual poverty, recognizing one's complete dependence on and need for the divine, emptying oneself of claims to independent power or accomplishment. Sabr, patience, developing steadfastness in the face of difficulties, without complaint or resistance, to what unfolds in one's life or spiritual journey. Tawakkul, trust, surrendering to divine wisdom while maintaining responsible action, the delicate balance of effort without attachment to results. Rida, contentment, cultivating genuine satisfaction with whatever circumstances arise, neither grasping at pleasure nor avoiding discomfort. The progression through these stations is not strictly linear, but often spiral. Each station contains aspects of previous ones at deeper levels. As the Sufi poet Rumi wrote, the stages of the path circle back upon themselves like seasons that return, but never in quite the same way. What makes these qualities stations rather than merely virtues is that they become established characteristics that define one's spiritual position. The Persian Sufi master Abu Sa'id ibn Abil Khair described this permanence, when the quality becomes so stable that it no longer fluctuates with changing circumstances. It has become a station of your being. In contrast to stations, ahwal, singular, hal, are spiritual states or conditions that come upon the heart without deliberate effort. The word hal literally means a condition or state of being, suggesting impermanence and changeability. States represent experiential dimensions of the spiritual journey that arrive as gifts rather than achievements. The Sufi master Abu Nasr al-Sarraj described them as meanings that descend into the heart without deliberate intention or effort to attract them. What distinguishes states from stations is their transient nature and their quality of being received rather than earned. The 11th century Persian Sufi al-Kushairi explained, "States are like flashes of lightning that illuminate the landscape momentarily, while stations are like stars fixed in their positions." Traditional Sufi texts describe numerous states, with the most commonly mentioned including qurb, nearness, the experiential sense of divine proximity, where the usual sense of separation dissolves temporarily. Uns, intimacy, a state of familiarity and comfort in divine presence, free from the constraint or awe that might characterize earlier experiences. Haiba, awe, overwhelming reverence and respect that arises from glimpsing divine majesty or greatness. Bast, expansion, a state where the heart feels open, receptive, and spacious, capable of embracing more reality than usual. Kabd, contraction, the opposite of expansion, where the heart feels constricted, creating focus and concentration of spiritual energy. Fana, annihilation, temporary dissolution of separate selfhood, in overwhelming awareness of divine reality. Baka, subsistence, the state where after annihilation, one returns to integrated awareness of both divine reality and manifest existence. These states arise and pass according to divine wisdom, rather than personal effort. As the Sufi poet Ibn al-Farid wrote, "The states of the heart are like clouds moved by the wind of divine grace. They come without your bidding and depart without your consent." This unpredictability of states led Sufi masters to warn against becoming attached to them or mistaking them for accomplishments. The 9th century female Sufi Rabia al-Adawiyya cautioned, "Do not rejoice in states that visit you, nor grieve over those that depart." Both attachment and aversion to spiritual states become veils on the path. While stations and states represent distinct categories in Sufi psychology, they exist in dynamic relationship with each other. The Persian Sufi tradition described 4 patterns of interaction between them. First, states often preview stations. A transient experience of a particular quality gives the seeker a taste of what might eventually be established as a permanent station. The 12th century Sufi Abd al-Qadir al-Jilani observed, "What begins as a visiting state may, through practice and grace, become a resident station." Second, stations create receptivity to specific states. The stable foundation of a particular quality makes one more capable of receiving corresponding experiences. The Andalusian Sufi Ibn Abbad of Ronda explained, "The station of spiritual poverty creates a vessel capable of being filled with the state of divine wealth. Each station prepares the heart for specific visitations." Third, states test the authenticity of stations. How one responds to powerful spiritual experiences reveals the genuine depth of one's established qualities. The 10th century Sufi al-Sulami noted, "When the state of contraction visits, the station of patience is tested, and when the state of expansion visits, the station of humility is tested." Fourth, the relationship between stations and states evolves along the path. For beginners, states are rare gifts that interrupt the work of establishing stations. For the advanced, states flow naturally from established stations. The 13th century Persian Sufi Najm al-Din Razi wrote, "For the beginner, states are like occasional visitors to a house under construction. For the realized, they are like family members who come and go freely within a completed home." This dynamic interplay creates what Sufis call the journey within the journey, the continuous unfoldment of deeper dimensions within each stage of development. Each station contains its beginning, yet reveals possibilities unimaginable from the starting point. Understanding this relationship between effort and grace, permanence and transience, provides a framework for approaching spiritual development that balances intentional practice with receptivity to what cannot be controlled. While Sufi manuals enumerate specific stations and states, the tradition acknowledges that the inner journey unfolds uniquely for each person. The sequence, emphasis, and experience of stations and states vary according to individual nature, cultural context, and divine wisdom. This recognition of uniqueness exists alongside awareness of universal patterns. The Persian Sufi tradition described three overarching stages that encompass the various stations and states. First is the path of seeking, tariqat, where one consciously works to establish the foundational stations while being occasionally visited by corresponding states. This stage emphasizes effort, practice, and the gradual refinement of character. Second is the path of finding, hakikat, where established stations create the conditions for more frequent and profound states. This stage balances effort with receptivity and personal intention with surrender. Third is the path of being, marifat, where the distinction between stations and states begins to dissolve into integrated realization. Here, qualities and experiences are recognized as facets of unified consciousness, rather than separate accomplishments or visitations. This framework allows for endless personal variation while recognizing the universal architecture of spiritual development. Each seeker moves through these stages according to their own timing and temperament. Yet, the essential progression from effort through receptivity to integration remains constant across all authentic spiritual unfolding. The Sufi framework of stations and states offers practical wisdom for contemporary spiritual seekers, regardless of religious affiliation. Three applications stand out as particularly relevant. First, this framework helps distinguish between what can be cultivated through practice and what must be received as gift. The modern tendency to approach spirituality as an achievement to be accomplished through technique alone misses the essential interplay of effort and grace. As the Sufi tradition teaches, certain qualities can indeed be developed systematically, but the most transformative experiences arrive according to a wisdom beyond our control. Second, understanding stations and states creates realistic expectations about stability and change in spiritual development. The contemporary spiritual landscape often creates confusion about what constitutes genuine progress, whether it's continuous ecstatic experience or unbroken equanimity. The Sufi model suggests neither expectation is accurate. Third, this framework offers guidance for intentional practice while maintaining openness to what cannot be planned. Modern approaches to inner development often oscillate between rigid techniques and formless exploration. The Sufi understanding of stations and states suggests a middle path. The Turkish Sufi teacher Cemal Nur Sargut describes this balanced approach. Work diligently as if everything depends on your effort, while remaining completely open to grace as if everything depends on divine bestowal. The mature traveler knows that both perspectives are simultaneously true. This practical wisdom extends beyond explicitly spiritual contexts into psychological development, creative work, relationships, and other dimensions of human experience, anywhere the interplay of intention and receptivity, stability and change plays a central role. The Sufi understanding of stations and states ultimately points toward a journey that transcends both categories, what the tradition calls the station beyond stations, or the state that contains all states. This is not another achievement on the path, but the recognition of what has been true from the beginning. As the Persian Sufi poet Mahmud Shabistari wrote, "The final secret is that there is no journey. You have always been at the destination, though veiled from recognizing it. The spiritual path does not bring you to unity, it uncovers the unity that was never absent." This paradoxical culmination doesn't render the framework of stations and states meaningless, but reveals its provisional nature, a map that serves its purpose, until the territory becomes directly known through experience. This perspective transforms spiritual practice from striving for distant achievement into the patient uncovering of what lies at the heart of present experience. A journey not of distance, but of depth, not of acquisition, but of recognition. As the Sufi tradition reminds us, the path continues without end, not because the destination remains distant, but because each arrival reveals new dimensions of the home we never truly left.